After a week shy of 2 years, Horrible Maps has returned. For my newer viewers, Horrible Maps was a series of videos I did for a few years where I would mock and disdain the terrible looking maps from various textbooks, websites, and even buildings. However, back in 2024, on the 16th episode, I had decided to end it. Firstly, I was getting bored of just saying, haha, map ugly over and over. You can only say that border is wrong so many times before it gets stale. Then, of course, if I'm not going to be as enthusiastic, the videos weren't going to get any better. Like I said in the now awkwardly named Horrible Maps finale, negativity can be draining, but passion can be much more fulfilling. So what changed here? For one, 2 years off removed a lot of the boredom, and during that time I got so many requests to bring the series back from the moment I ended it. I tried a successor series talking about awesome maps that I liked, but those videos were some of my worst performing videos. That's the internet for you. Then when I did the 2026 channel census survey as well, I even asked everyone, hey, what are some types of videos you want me to do more of? What are some types of videos you want me to bring back? And Horrible Maps was the overwhelming winner. There's also been a notable change in the mapping landscape since 2024 that I also unintentionally predicted. There will definitely be future videos about critiquing bad maps, like perhaps about a specific map in a game, or I imagine there will be some AI map horrors that will appear in the near future. Yeah, the rise of AI has made the need to point out bad maps more important than ever. But if I'm bringing back this series, there's going to be some changes. After all, I don't want to run into the same issues that made me grow bored of the original series in the first place. We're going to look at different types of bad maps and not just say why the map is bad, but talk about how it misrepresents things or hinders the understanding of what it's trying to teach in the first place. Basically, rather than haha map ugly, it's going to be haha map ugly and wrong and here's how and why it matters. I'm also still going to occasionally talk about good maps too because gosh darn it, someone has to. Alright, let's get into it. First, let's look at a classic type of horrible map. Sent to me by Cassius, this is a bad map from their history textbook that is attempting to map World War II in Europe. Aside from the obvious sloppy borders and coastlines, the biggest issue is the presentation of the borders. The borders are difficult to see in a lot of places, and in other areas appear to be outright missing. Over here, it labels the nations of France and the Netherlands, or I guess they're calling them Holland, but there's no label for Belgium, despite there being a label for Brussels. Although, Brussels doesn't have a city dot. Actually, none of these city labels have corresponding dots either. Overall, it makes this map terrible to read for information. Also, these colored borders attempting to show the size of Germany between 1937, 1939, and 1942 seem like a neat idea, but somehow they're not only wrong, but in some areas they fail to even connect the shape properly. Then I guess they don't want the lines to overlap, which leads to a situation where it implies Germany in between 1939 and 1942 just took a strip of land from Italy when they never did. Germany didn't expand like rains on a tree trunk like this map seems to weirdly imply. Coloring errors like Germany owning Copenhagen before the war but occupying Istanbul during the war makes the map even worse. While it's easy to make fun of maps like these for being ugly, you can at least have the possibility of an ugly map still being correct with the general information it's trying to present, but this map doesn't do that. 3 out of 10. This next map was sent in by Enderman 1951, and it's a map that was briefly featured in a Henry Bellcaster YouTube short. Now, I am sympathetic to quick, simplified videos of, hey, this cool thing happened, isn't that neat? And understand that by doing such things, some information will be left out. It's a surface level video, not a deep dive. And it's not even a full video, it's a short. However, I would argue that even for a surface level short, using this as a map of the Mongol Empire is a bad idea. This map is a lazy edit of just simply color filling in modern day countries that the Mongols invaded, but it couldn't even do that right because it forgot Russia. The Mongols were one of the few groups in history to actually outright defeat the Russians, so that's quite the omission. But most of these modern nations didn't even exist in Mongol times anyway, and maps like these give a false impression that Belarus and Saudi Arabia have magically always existed with the same borders, when they haven't. If you wanted a quick lazy map of the Mongol Empire to use for this short, there are plenty of much better ones to choose from. I would highly encourage Henry to do better. 4 out of 10. But you know, that kind of map slop is old-fashioned. The new map slop is made with generative AI, and it's already plaguing the internet. In some cases, there are now entire channels that are nothing but AI-generated slop. I found one channel, which I will leave nameless because they don't deserve any traffic, that made a video on historically weird maps. But AI was used for every visual, so there were also maps that didn't even make sense to the script of the video, almost like it was trying to generate B footage. When talking about how Amerigo Vespucci influenced the eventual naming of the New World as America, it showed this still image of a confused explorer-type person looking at a map upside down. Zooming into this map highlights how bad AI maps are, as you have a weirdly distorted Eurasian continent, but a missing Africa. But I guess both sides of the Atlantic are apparently America. Oh wait, actually, there are two Atlantic Oceans apparently. Then I guess the AI somehow decided to put the Panama Canal as a land bridge across the ocean? Then also label South America as Panama, then I guess the coastline here is Panama too, or I guess based on the distorted lettering it's more like plum. But basically, this entire video is full of slop like this, and sadly these channels are becoming more and more common. Humans make mistakes, but at least they're capable of quality control. 0 out of 10. For a brief, lighthearted bad map, here's a map of Scandinavia made by the National Library of France's map division in 1940, sent in by Alexei. So I don't even know how this happened, but most of the map is pretty good. But then you have this random bump in the Narvik area of Norway, almost like someone bonked Scandinavia in the head and it got a lump like in an old cartoon. Since this was done by hand, I imagine it was probably a case of by the time they noticed there was no turning back, and since it was 1940, I'm sure France had a lot more pressing matters to worry about, but it is pretty funny that this got published. If this map was cropped up to here, it would be like an 8 or 9 out of 10 map. But alas, this bump will bump it down to a 6 out of 10. Then finally, we have a map sent in by Ancient Americas, which they're a great channel, so check them out. Apparently, this was posted on Facebook, so the original source is unknown. Reverse image searching doesn't bring anything either, but my suspicions are that this map is AI slop, and the visuals heavily support that. The first sign of AI slop on maps like this are the weirdly morphed coastlines. Anyone can draw a coastline wrong or off, but because AI is training itself off of mostly stolen work, whenever it gets something wrong, it's almost never something like portions or poses of something, but rather something freaky like a random third arm popping out of nowhere. If you look at what is supposed to be the coastline of Turkey, the part around the Greek island of Lesbos is repeated here like it's a pattern, but then weirdly fades away here. A lot of AI is trained to copy features of other art pieces and amalgamate it into something different, so it's as if it doesn't understand that the coastlines are for the most part supposed to always have the same shape, and so it attempts to make it look more unique, but in typical cheap AI fashion can't hide that it's ultimately working off the materials that were fed into it. And this is all before we get to the actual information it's trying to present, the Great Christian Schism of 1054, when the Orthodox and Catholic churches separated. Somehow it put the Roman Catholics in the morphed Byzantine Empire over here, and put the Byzantine Empire in Mesopotamia and Western Persia. Rome is where Athens should be, at least I think, it's hard to tell, while Jerusalem is where Baghdad should be. Egypt, the only labeled region, is in Arabia. Frankly, there's just no way a human could have messed up on a map this much. Obviously, any map that gets everything mislabeled can't be useful in teaching anything. Also, another sign of AI is that AI loves to use this weird burnt color filter when trying to make something look old, and I hate it. Overall, this map gets the coveted nope out of 10. From now on, I want horrible map episodes to end on a more positive note and feature a good map. For this episode, however, I'm just going to simply plug in the awesome map series I did, since a lot of people just simply never watched it. They're about really cool maps ranging from a giant map of Scotland carved out of stone to a nerdy interactive weather map. I'll be linking the playlist at the end of the video for you to check them out. I promise it's interesting. Otherwise, it's good to be back with horrible maps. I'm probably going to limit these to once a season or so. Again, I want to keep this series fresh this time and not stale and overly saturated. Either way though, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Emperor Tiger Star, and I'll see you guys next time.